This is our Oahu community meeting for the community-based renewable energy docket number 2015-0389. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Again, just to reiterate, if you do wish to speak, please identify yourself in the chat. We have a few that have stepped forward so far. We did want to initially have a 5-minute limit, but given the limited number of people who have asked so far, we're going to modify the format a little bit. As I said, we'll have Shelly Kimura from Hawaiian Electric speak just to give a broad overview from their perspective. Ms. Cynthia Resents has some materials she wants to present to the PUC. So we'll go through that, and then we'll move through the folks that have identified. Again, we also have the ability to take written comments. I'll get to those materials, but first let me introduce my colleagues. So as I said, I'm Jay Griffin, the chair of the PUC. Joined here tonight by Commissioner Jennifer Potter, Commissioner Leo Suncian, as well as a number of our staff. The meeting tonight is being recorded and it will be available later on the Commission's YouTube channel. Again, any of you that wish to speak, identify yourself in the chat feature. And then as we get through that, we will check on folks on the phone just to identify if any of you on the phone wish to speak. Purpose of the meeting is for the Commission to listen to ideas to improve the community-based renewable energy phase 2 request for proposal, improving community engagement on this program, and the community benefits potential for these projects. I think I've identified our format for now. We'll have Ms. Kimura go first, Ms. Resents. We have some others that I've identified. If you have further comments you wish to give to the Commission, you can put those in email to puc.comments@hawaii.gov. We'll also put up our mail address if you wish to mail those in as well. And with that, we're going to turn it over to the speakers here. So Ms. Kimura, if you can please take it from here. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair Griffin. And also just thanks to the Commission for creating this opportunity. Like you said, this is new for all of us, but I think this is a really important and novel step that we're taking here to create this opportunity to hear from community, and to the members and leaders in our communities that are here. And Cynthia, it's great to see you. Shar and Patty and Ali, just great to see you guys here and having the opportunity to have these discussions. And Lori, nice to see you too. I'm glad you could join. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Shelly Kimura, and I'm the Hawaiian Electric SVP or Senior Vice President for Customer Service and Public Affairs. Several years ago, when we set out to achieve our state's goal of 100% renewable energy, large renewable energy projects are relatively new. And over the last few years, we moved forward in a pretty big way to buy renewable energy from third parties so that we could meet the state goals to which we're held accountable to reach the 100% renewable goal. And there's lots of good reasons for why that's the right thing to do. Along the way, we have and I have had a lot of lessons learned. And one is the recognition of each community that may be impacted. And each community can be impacted in different ways. And by each renewable project that's pursued, everyone is different. We recognize that some communities are impacted more than others, like West Oahu, just because of where the solar-rich land is available and where the market is going to just automatically gravitate to. I believe Hawaiian Electric exists to serve. We serve customers and communities, and so it's critically important for us to listen and understand and to work with our communities that we serve to improve policy and process around renewable project development. And we don't have all the answers, and I've told our community friends and leaders that as well, but we want to work with them because we want to seek out those solutions so that we can move forward with renewable energy, that we can achieve our 100% renewable goals, but also do it in a way that creates sustainable communities and that creates opportunities and done in a way that community thinks is acceptable. And we know that we can't please everybody, but we think it's really important as we move forward, given the amount of renewables that Hawaii is going to need to meet our state policies. Community involvement is critical if we're going to create that sustainable future for Hawaii. A few months ago, we started a process to strengthen our engagement with a group of West Oahu community leaders, some of whom are here tonight. And our intention was to determine how to improve process and policy for future renewable project procurements that have yet to be designed. Our objective, our stated objective for this work was to empower communities with an understanding of energy policy and process so that they can engage in energy discussions to provide input into policymaking and process improvements that would better serve communities. And I believe that informed community voice will help us, and it'll help policymakers to be more informed ourselves. And this will allow us to help shape policy and processes in a way that's inclusive and equitable as we achieve state goals. We included the Hawaii State Energy Office in our community meetings as well. And that was in part because of their role and their desire to engage with communities, as well as the need for us to look at both policy and process. And I've really valued the meetings we've had thus far, and I value the community leaders and their wisdom and their insights that they've shared with us and the time that they took to do that. We focused our discussions on future process. We set expectations up front that we weren't talking about projects that were already in the works or projects that were already approved by the Public Utilities Commission. That those projects had our full support and that there was an urgency in getting those done. And when we set out to do this, it wasn't our intention to delay shared solar through these discussions. We know, and you know, the commission and other stakeholders in the docket know that we had worked hard with the commission and the consumer advocate and many stakeholders over several years to create a viable program. One that we believe creates opportunities for communities and customers that haven't had those opportunities to participate in programs like rooftop solar. It creates opportunities for them to benefit from solar when they don't have a roof that they can have rooftop solar or that they're renting. So we think that this program has real benefits and is important. We had met with many neighborhood boards as well as community nonprofits who we thought could be subscriber organizations. But in our most recent meetings with the West Oahu community leaders, we quickly realized that everyone involved or impacted by the program would be better served if we, meaning all of us responsible for making Act 100 successful, supported the community and their request to provide input to the process up front. And I think that's the critical part of this, that this is upfront and the community wants to be engaged up front, which I think is positive. And we have the opportunity to work with them to address concerns now rather than later when the projects are being built. So today we're here to continue to listen and understand. And if given the opportunity, we'd like to spend some time to find solutions that can be addressed in the RFP, if we can address it in the RFP, but also balancing that with the recognition that we need to quickly launch the shared solar programs because of the benefits that they have for many other customers, including those on the call here, but across the state. So those are my initial comments, and I just wanted to provide some context as well for some of the discussions we've been having, and happy to answer any questions that may come later. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Cynthia, if you're ready, hopefully Mike can put it into presenting view and we'll go through your presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Shelley. I do want to thank both the PUC and Hawaiian Electric for supporting the community. We have met with Hawaiian Electric, a small group of the West Side leaders, West Side including the Waianae, Nanakuli, Makakilo, Kapolei area. And I have talked to North Shore and through them extension to Kahuku area. So if we can go, thank you, Mike. So the first slide, I wanted to set the tone as to why there is this concern, if you will, on the West Side especially. And I used this particular chart in the letter that was sent to the PUC. And pretty much what I did was I took all of those power generating facilities that are either up and running and or will be soon running from North Shore Kahuku down to Central Oahu and then essentially west to Kaena Point. And the calculation was essentially that until a few other projects come up closer to Waiau, we pretty much generate about 74% of the power that's utilized on island minus rooftop. And I took that out just because there's no way to calculate where that falls on the island. So the impact is fairly hefty on our side of the island, and we do recognize that we do have geographical features that make it very attractive for some of the renewable energy projects, whether it be solar or wind. And we have been challenged with large utility scale wind and solar projects for a number of years now. And based on that and our past history with some of the projects that have come in, both positive and negative, we wanted to go ahead and express some of our concerns regarding where we are and what we would recommend. So the next slide, Mike. So I wanted to lay out, this is where we got our information from. So that's the URL. And again, approximately 74% of the total power generation for the island of Oahu comes from those areas that I spoke about. The other thing I wanted to raise, and again, this is part of my background on sitting on the National Environmental Justice Advisory Council, is that we all have to be, and you've seen it recently, we all have to be cognizant of environmental justice, fairness for all communities and all peoples, rather than just assuming just because something can go there because nobody's going to complain about it, or it's already a trashed out area that you can continue to pile on the whatever. There is the environmental justice considerations per the Executive Order 12898 that was signed by President Clinton in, I believe, 1996, which calls on all federal agencies to take into account as they plan projects to take into consideration environmental justice. So I want to raise that because, again, that is a concern for those of us on the west side, North Shore, and Kahuku. So some of the things that we were interested in presenting, can we back up one, Mike? Thanks. So some of the considerations that I've been hearing in the community, and again, I apologize that I don't necessarily have these prioritized. We did not have essentially enough time to do a community survey, but these are the things that I've been hearing over the years that other of the community leaders on the west side have been hearing. So these are the considerations that we're looking at. Again, in no particular order. Projects should be placed on impervious lands should receive more points rather than locking up uncovered lands. In other words, projects that maybe the idea is for these CBRE projects that you tell them, go find the nearest shopping center parking lot and put your project on that versus go put it up and over ag lands that are still potentially viable for ag lands, to not continue to impact new lands, but to impact current lands that have already been impacted that could take this additional facility without impacting negatively, again, new lands. The other benefit from that would be, hey, you just provided shaded parking to everybody on the west side and the hot side of the island. The other thing we looked at was, one of the concerns I had was, so these CBRE projects, they're going to come in and everybody from Hawaii Kai is going to go ahead and buy it out, and nobody locally who lives next to it that impacted is going to be able to buy into the project. So one of the things might be that we're recommending is maybe for these subscriptions, they should be provided on a proximity basis, on a time basis. In other words, within the first 5 miles of the project, those people should be given first option to subscribe, and then it opens up maybe another 5 or 10 miles beyond the project and eventually to the entire island, but to scale it out so that the people that are affected are also the ones that, if they can take the benefit by subscribing to these CBRE projects, rather than somebody in Hawaii Kai or Wailai Iki from saying, you know what, I got an extra few $1,000, let me go buy into it so I can reduce my power bill. So that's another one. The other thing is, perhaps there should be a limit of power generation posted, and again, this is by development plan area or sustainable plan area. We have 9 of those on the island of Oahu. Maybe there should be a target that, rather than everything be dumped into 1 or 2 areas, that there needs to be consideration that if they're being proposed in other areas, that they be given a higher priority so that we spread power generation out around the island. 2 reasons for that. 1, equity, and number 2, resiliency. If something happens on one side of the island, maybe we have enough resiliency based on projects in other areas of the island, rather than everything being taken down just because one side gets hit or not. So that would be something else to take into consideration, is rather than just assuming because we have the geographic niceties of having sun and flat areas, that maybe we need to look at it more from a resiliency standpoint, especially as climate changes and the stronger storms that we're getting, or the rain bombs that we get, that this needs to be something that needs to be spread out so that we have a more diverse system. And again, with that, it's that maybe there should be a target that every development plan, sustainable area plan should at least have one utility scale power generating facility to contribute. Even if it doesn't go to 10 to 20% on average around the island, but they should, every community should have something. The other thing that I was looking at, and this might seem a little bit strange, is limit the development per square mile. What we see out here is that not only do we have utility scale solar farms or wind farms in the rural areas, but especially in Waianae, what we're finding is we have these little pockets. This guy has maybe 1 to 5 acres, and all of a sudden there's a solar farm on his property. And guess what? Next door, the guy says, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let me put that up over here. All of a sudden we have enough solar panels in an area that looks like it's a large scale utility in that area. Again, detracting from the area's rural aspect and the fact that we still have ag lands that could be productive for food and other produce. Next one, Mike, thank you. The other thing that has been an ongoing battle, especially on our side of the island, is culturally recognized lands should and or must be considered to be off limits for projects. Every time there's a new wind farm that's proposed on our side of the island above Kahe, we're fighting it on a cultural basis because of what we know is up there. And we're told that, oh no, we can put these things in between, we can put wind farm footprints in between your cultural aspects. Well, that's not necessarily a good thing, because it still takes away from the significance of the area. So especially with the process as it's done now, you go out, you put an RFP out there, you get the projects in, they negotiate with Hawaiian Electric for a PPA, they come to the PUC says yes, and all of a sudden the community is playing catch up that says, no, we don't want it there. So rather than go through that, that needs to be looked at up front. A concern that has come up recently from an individual that I know, apparently there's a project that's going up now, and it's very difficult sometimes to figure out who to contact regarding real-time discussions about the project coming up, whether it's dust, noise, whatever. So one of the requests was that Hawaiian Electric provide either a website or a web page for all contractor builder information for each project, so that there can be clearer communications when the community has issues, or there needs to be some kind of bridge there rather than the community spinning their gears trying to figure out, okay, who do I talk to now so that I can get some resolution on whatever the issue is. And along with that is that we need to make mandatory that developers work with the community to address standard mitigations, whether it's traffic concerns, dust controls, providing regular status updates to the neighbors on a real-time basis, whether it's through just a neighborhood board or even an occasional community meeting for the neighbors around the project, so that the project is never surprising for the community, that the community knows that their issues are being addressed. And then lastly, we've done this in the past with Hawaiian Electric, this when we did the CIP project in Campbell. Part of it is the community did ask for community benefits. One of the asks was consideration of preferential rates for communities hosting these utility scale projects. At that time, that was rejected. It's as far as I'm concerned, it should be back on the table again. We did receive funds from Hawaiian Electric that helped establish a small advisory council who uses Hawaii Community Foundation to provide funding to small nonprofits along the west side and the Kapolei Makakilo area to be able to access funds for conservation, restoration, recycling issues for primarily youth to college age kids. That would be another community benefits that could be considered. Another thing is our schools are hot. If you're going to take and use our heat and solar to generate power and AC for somebody else, why not help us get our schools air conditioned? We know that our schools are old and that would mean we would need some electrical upgrades, but that is not an unreasonable ask in our minds. The other thing is, because again, this is a higher technology type of projects that we're talking about, what about providing STEAM educational programs for our schools so that our kids can get access to just the STEAM concept to be able to figure out their own paths in life? Enhanced lighting in public places. We have a lot of parks, we have libraries, we have play areas. Extra lights would not be turned away. And then provide enhanced community broadband service. I know that's not directly related to power generation, but if you don't have the power generation, and especially in today's environment, this is a big area that benefits communities severely, especially for those of us on this side of the island, where not every household is signed up to either have broadband or internet in their house. So these were some of the things that we were thinking about. Some of them I think could potentially directly impact the RFP as far as the analysis and consideration. And some of these could be potential other asks that as a community that would probably end up hosting more of this stuff that we feel would help benefit our programs, our projects, our community, our people from a justice standpoint, just an environmental and economic, socioeconomic justice standpoint. And I know that there are other people on the line who were part of the group, and I would defer to them to continue to add on to this. But again, these are not in any particular order, but they're thrown out there for real consideration versus just saying, well, too bad, so sad. You guys are on the side of the island that has the capability to handle all this stuff because you have the land and you have the sun. Not a good enough explanation anymore, at least as far as trying to be fair to the communities that have been hosting all of these projects for the last number of 20, 30, 40 years, to the benefit of other people who don't even have to consider looking at any of this. And maybe they don't care, but I think that there needs to be a different perspective on, other than just because it's geographically adequate, that we're the only ones that can do it. I think there are other manners in which we could increase these projects in other areas. As I said, throw it on top of parking lots. I mean, even our small little Kaiser Clinic has solar over their parking lot here in Nanakuli. You know, you're starting to see that in other places. I think an emphasis on utilizing the spaces that we have now that are not fully utilized for projects like this could be of benefit. And it just doesn't have to be a 200-acre because it's easy to put in. Let's go do it there. Let's make sure that everybody shares in this, not just a few communities who share for everybody else. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much I do appreciate the fact that the PUC was willing to listen to us, because this has been a festering consideration in our community for a long time. We've had a love-hate relationship with a number of these projects, and we want it to be better. We want our community to be viewed better and treated better. So again, thank you very much.
I want to thank you for a number of things. One, taking the time to pull all this information together, work with your community, present it to us, be here tonight. So on behalf of the commission, I want to thank you for that. Also want to note, I just want to ask if it's all right that we put this in the docket record. I can have our staff attorney post your presentation. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, figured. As well as I think we put up our contact information in the chat here. If you want to add, provide additional information, as well as anyone here tonight, any ideas you want to supplement here, those avenues are open. But I just, again, I want to thank you for taking the time and helping organize and present this information to us. So with that, what I also want to reiterate, anyone else that wishes to speak, first, we're asking you to post in the chat. And the next request we had was from Patty Kahanamoku Teruya. So, Patty.
Aloha, can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Aloha kako, Patty Kahanamoku Teruya. First and foremost, to follow after Cynthia, it's very difficult, okay? But I'm going to try and hit it. Cynthia has done a very excellent job in putting and working together with us, and to get the PUC to have this meeting tonight. I dearly appreciate the PUC commissioners to take the time to listen to the concerns and suggestions from the West Oahu Ohana. I, for one, just served 5 days on the commission on the Department of Hawaiian Homelands this whole entire week, and I'm really exhausted. So I know how it is to serve as a commissioner. I won't repeat a lot of the things that Ms. Resentis has covered. She covered just exactly what I wanted to plan to cover. But mainly, I just wanted to, thank the PUC for listening, and that is truly important when it comes to community-based energy programs like this that come up. Hawaiian Electric, for years working with them, has listened to our community, and this is why we're at this level, because they listened, they cared about the Waianae community. We have worked closely a number of years, both Cynthia and Maida and a lot of Shar and Joe Jordan. We're like getting old on this, but we've still communicated with HICO on all their projects because they malama our community of West Oahu. And that means a lot. And I know Cynthia covered that so many times in her verses. After reading the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, they did a fantastic job. I commend them too for putting their letters together. And that brought that to the attention that we on the West Oahu should work towards bringing these CBR programs to the attention of PUC. At first, we battled, what name are we going to choose, right? Are we going to pick Hui or are we going to pick Ohana? And so we battled it all together, but we came up with West Oahu Clean Energy Ohana. And so we have worked together, and Cynthia with her leadership has stepped up to put our letters together. We have discussed this openly with HICO, with our membership. And mainly, we respectfully ask the PUC to support in conducting an independent community planning process that includes, the West Oahu working with our stakeholders. That is truly important, that we can put this together and focus, not just HICO leading the process, but we as West Oahu leaders and our HANA should be the one that focusing to work with mainly what kind of projects that come to our community and how are they going to malama our community. We talk about community benefit packages, and today, this whole week of listening to the solar request from the Big Island, community package was very important that was brought up. And many times when we talk about community benefit packages, they don't commit. It falls apart. They don't follow through their community benefit packages to the community. And so that was expressed very highly with communities. I live on Department of Hawaiian Homelands. I'm a beneficiary on the Native Hawaiian Trust land. I do have many concerns because we are one of the largest Hawaiian homestead lands in the Waianae Coast. And so we need to also be able to, beneficiaries, to be able to work with the department very closely and to make sure that the address, firstly, is community input. Many times these projects come to our community, it's after the fact. The developer is found, the land has been already set for 25 years, there are RFPs moving forward, and no consultation. Nothing from the community. And then so the community tends to get upset with HICO because they're not listening to us on the west side. They're just selling their energy and bringing in more than solar farms that we expected. We have tons of solar panels in our community. Cynthia made a very good suggestion. Instead of using ag lands or open flat lands, then we should look at having it at building tops. My first suggestion is put it out on the State Department of Hawaiian Homelands parking lot. They should use solar energy and start with that, and to use that as an example for our community. But we are battling our community. We are battling hard to protect our open lands, whether it's agricultural, and most of our lands there in Waianae Coast are ag lands, and not to turn it into a solar farm. And these are strong oppositions that are always expressed with our community on a neighborhood board level. We don't get to hear any of these projects. We get to hear it after the fact, and it's truly sad that we get to comment after the fact when everything is moving forward. And so Cynthia covered mostly everything, and I'm going to hold it back. I thank you very much for this time, commissioners, and for working late at night too and listening to our community. And I want to thank Hawaiian Electric, their team, for continuing to malama our community and continuing to keep that open relationship that we bond with each other for over 30 plus years. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll open it up to other speakers. Thank you so much, commissioners. Aloha no.
Thank you, Patty. I think the next person we've had request is Charlotte Poi. I think I saw you up. Also want to acknowledge, seeing the audience, Senator Favela. Looks like you raised your hand. I don't know if you want to speak, but I do want to acknowledge the senator. And well, Charlotte asked, but maybe if we want to go to you after that.
Yeah, sorry. The reason I raised my hand is I couldn't. I'm on my phone, so I know you said you was gonna get to on the phone. I was
Okay.
gonna wait my turn till you was gonna call on the phone, but that's why I raised my hand because I wanted.
Okay, thank you, Senator. We'll make sure we get to you. Charlotte? Do you want, I can unmute here.
All right, aloha, can you hear me now? Okay, mahalo, Chair
Yes.
Griffin, and PEC commissioners, staff, and the rest of the community. Mahalo for creating the space. I appreciate the time and the space for these discussions. And I just really wanted to take it a little bit further than where Cynthia had started it, and then Patty took it. I know Cynthia spoke a lot about specific items that, you know, we hope for consideration that might go into the RPM and the process. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more and go back to highlight some of the things that were in our initial letter and speak to the process itself. So sometimes I know when we talk about community benefits, and this is just a note I want to bring up before I go into my list, is community benefits, right, to us are not frivolous asks. They're not just because we want to say, give us, give us, give us. They are meant to help us address and mitigate a lot of the social, economic, and environmental injustices that are perceived or achieved by projects that will come in or have historically come into our communities. And it's not just to us on the west side, right? These are to many of our communities. So when we talk about community benefits package, sometimes the stigma of all these communities always ask for stuff, right? It's because we're trying to address some of the disparities that have historically plagued us and our communities over years. So in some ways, it is a reciprocal relationship for us. Okay, I just wanted to state that before I go on. So I wanted to touch on a couple of things regarding the process itself. So as a general rule, I think considering that community is involved in the process from as early on as possible and as frequently as possible is one of the ways to develop good, strong relationships, less conflict as we move on, and more streamlined approaches to how do we accomplish larger and larger projects in communities that historically have been super resistant. Secondly is in the process for the RFPs, right? We see that it's after the RFPs get drafted, or not just for the RFPs, but the releasing of RFPs. It's not until after the RFPs are drafted that community even has a chance, right, to engage in that, like consideration to be given, you know, seriously given to community being part of what the drafting that RFP look like. Because you have your technical experts, you have Hawaiian Electric that's there, you have those who, you know, your independent observer, I think that's the right, well, that might not be the right term, but you know who I mean, right? And then you have community that our goal is we may not be as technical savvy per se as some of the experts that are engaged in this development. However, we understand and know our communities and some of the values we want to retain and maintain are, and how best to navigate through the process of engaging and bridging the gap between the entities of government and corporate and our communities. So that consideration of having vested community leaders from the communities projects are going into being part of that RFP draft up. And then also, I had one more thing. I don't know if there's some way, right, that it can be required. And to be honest, this is not only for CBRE, but I hope that some of these requests and points for consideration that are being presented tonight would also be considered for other projects and not only CBRE. However, since we're on CBRE, let's just say that is there some way to require developers to partner with a genuine and an established community organization from the community they want to establish their project in some way? To be honest, I have no idea what that would look like. I'm totally open to further discussions on even just kind of seeing how that would be possible and what that might entail. But I think that might be also a very good issue or item to take up in consideration and discussion. And last thing too, I know sometimes the selection of these projects are heavily cost-based, but sometimes, you know, our people are not just numbers, right, in our community. So sometimes there's conflict between the cost of a project and what the developer is looking for as far as profit, and some of the things we as community ask for, because it doesn't allow for as much generation of profit. However, finding Pono developers who are willing to work with us in that way also opens up doors for other additional projects, because other communities will see that this developer was Pono and how they interacted and engaged with an included community as well. Many times, just a recent experience with another Waianae Valley project that's been approved and in the process already, is we're asking for certain things only to find out that that's not in their contract, that wasn't budgeted for. So for us as community, things that make sense for us, we're way behind the ball on that. And those things cannot be changed because how the contract was approved, that's what we're stuck with as community, right? So being involved, circling that early on and frequently, I think is beneficial and a win-win for everyone all around. Okay, thank you so much. That's all I got for now. And aloha.
Thank you for sharing that and being here tonight. Appreciate your time. Senator Favela, are you able to log in? Want to make sure we thank you for participating tonight.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. Just going forward, beginning part with Hawaiian Electric. I know we have a lot of renewable projects, and they've been as informational as possible as they can be. But I'm still waiting for my 5 years, since I got in 2019, about 5 years going forward, renewable projects for the island. Years past renewable energy. I still never get that after a so-called consultation meeting for the Nanakuli solar. So going forward, it would be nice to have that. The reason why I wanted that is because exactly the way we are here now. Okay? And I understand, Cynthia did a great job and everything, but reached out, and I still cannot find the agenda, and reached out numerous of times, and I'm not sure if anybody on the task force had an opportunity to find out that I wanted to be a part of it. And you guys keep saying West Side and everything, but it's still going to benefit or not benefit all, yeah, from Ever Beach, Waipahu, all the way down to Makaha. And I understand that, all of these other solar farms have been popping up and all of that. So going forward, again, on the record, I would want that information from Hawaiian Electric. And like I said, I know it's not Hawaiian Electric's fault, and maybe the POC can help with this, but you guys have stuff that was on the docket 5 years prior, 5 years going forward. That's the information that I wanted. The reason for that is so that the community could get informed and have these meetings, have some of the stuff that is going forward. Yeah, with like Camp Palihua, like how they wanted to do the windmills, proposed to do the one in Nanakuli, in Hawaiian Homes. All of these things, if we had a heads up knowing what was coming down the turnpike, we could have prepared. So I would definitely want to be part of this West Side or West Side Ohana or whatever it's called task force, because my family lives from all on that side of the island, and I would really want to help be a part of that task force going forward. You guys already got most of my letters. You guys know my reason why I'm opposition to some of this, because again, the West Side, we have landfills, power plants, and the most solar farms per probably community, from Kapolei to Waianae. I know there's other places on this island, but it was never looked into, never had looked into, but we need to be more environmental justice, because if we want to have good working relationship with everybody, developers, solar farm, Hawaiian Electric, and the PUC, we need to be more transparent. I will tell you why. If all the solar farms and all these renewable energy and sheer solar farms on our side of the island is put in, there's a natural disaster. Just to put all our eggs in one basket. You see, going forward, those are the things that we really want to be. And I always bring this up. I really want somebody, PUC, Hawaiian Electric, maybe even the developers, to really show how big is Hawaii's carbon footprint. Yeah, we all want to be renewable energy, right? We all want to do our part. But again, to what extent? We have right now solar farms that's going to be going in Cuneo, up in Konoe, Mahi Solar Farm. Oh, I met with them. They're using ag land and solar and renewable energy and water and all that combination on the land. So they're using up the land and making sure that they're going to plant vegetables, fruits like that, so it can sustain our farm to table and our doubling our farm products in Hawaii. But if we can continue to build solar farms before we start putting people in homes, like in Kapolei again, so many acres, because these guys are the procurement chief or the procurement leaders. They can tell what is and what is not. There's no oversight. And that's the reason why. That's what I wanted to bring to the west side Ohana committee, so that they know that part, that these guys are making the decisions. It's just like having the fox watch the hen house. They're making the decisions for the land and going forward and soliciting, and then letting everybody know here on this Zoom or WebEx or whatever it is. Hawaii Electric is not the problem. Everybody blaming them, and I was very naive like everybody else. But Shannon really educated me on some of these things that was happening, and that's what I wanted. But Hawaiian Electric still didn't give me the information. I had to seek it out myself to find out that they're just the ones that are going to take the information from the PUC, and the PUC is going to do what they need to do, and they're just going to work with the developer who's making the solar farm. They're not the ones soliciting the energy, and they're not soliciting the energy and the solar farms. That is done by the private developer or the people that own the land, but they still got to go due diligence through the PUC. So just all I'm saying is just to be a little bit more careful on how we do renewable energy on our side of the island, on the west side, because we are taking the blunt of everything on this side of the island. And I think we need to really, really look into that, because I know in Black Point, there's very good, beautiful, beautiful landscaping over there that we can hang some nice solar along the cliffs where all the homeless throw their rubbish and make all pilau on the side of the mountain. Nice solar farms here, right across, right around the coast. So there's other places. You just got to be creative. And how you be creative? If you look other places. And when the West Side people start saying no, then you're going to be forced to be creative and go look at Diamond Head area, Hawaii Kai, Kahala, Kailua. Yeah, you got to look in those areas. Not always just on the West Side. Again, thank you guys for letting me speak. And if you can get the information on Hawaiian Electric to me, I'll be happy. And if Cynthia, if I can be part of this committee, I'll be happy to be part of this committee and be part of this renewable energy going forward. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for all you guys' hard work. Take care. God bless.
Thank you, Senator. I'll make sure we reach out to your office to get the information you need, and we can work with Hawaiian Electric as well. I just want to, Lori Buchanan, I saw you requested to speak after West Oahu folks. I saw a comment from Chris Kuaiva. Did you want to speak, or you just wanted to offer your chat for everyone? I'll just reiterate, anyone that wishes to speak, please make a request in the chat. Okay, not hearing anything. Lori, if you want to go, and then I think we'll try and turn over to the phone.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, honorable commission members, Hawaiian Electric Company, and Cynthia. I'm here tonight to support the West Oahu community, not only because my daughter is a resident of the Waianae Valley homestead for many, many years, but also here to because I read about the concerns, and Cynthia wrote a very great letter about community benefits, and everybody throughout the state of Hawaii is well aware of the preponderance of renewable projects in West Oahu. And we are all very fully aware of that the balance of equity is off, and that there is a disadvantage to communities. And I also wanted to thank Leo Asuncion at this time, because he gave a really good presentation last week at the Hawaii Congress of Planning Officials that outlined the responsibility of the PUC and the struggles that the PUC has in making adjustments to this kind of new paradigm about the communities and communities being affected. But I wanted to speak directly to the CBRE, the Community-Based Renewable Energy Request for Proposal process. And really from the island of Molokai, instead of just saying, oh, you know, putting us, we wanted some community benefits, which we never had. We really went much farther than that. And the only way to really ensure community benefits for us was to actually to become the developer. And so what we found in pursuing, trying to be the developer of the CBRE projects was really that there was roadblocks to actually helping us along in achieving that. And so what we asked the PUC to do in conjunction and HECO in several correspondence was really to try and remove the roadblocks or to encourage the communities to be the actual developers. And that way they would really ensure that whatever advantage or profits they could ensure went back to their communities as the developers. And so HECO, being a for-profit publicly traded corporate company, obviously has to have their responsibility to shareholders in order to be profitable. And so when you come up and you have the community replacing being the developer in these projects, you then have the control of what types of benefits are going to go back to your community, whether it's directly through what they pay per kilowatt hour or other types of community benefits that the community wants to set up. So what am I talking about when I say roadblocks? Well, for us, it seemed to be that in the RFP, HECO was able to provide to have their own affiliates as well as their own self-build projects bid on their own RFP. And for that, that was really, for myself, that was really the biggest stumbling block, because I felt as long as the company, the utility, had the opportunity to bid on their own project, that we would not find anyone to help us because it was an unfair advantage. And so that's the type of roadblocks I'm talking about. The other roadblocks would be things like interconnection costs. I was just at a planning commission meeting today on Molokai that oversaw MECO working in partnership with a private landowner to propose the biggest solar project on Molokai to date. And that came as a real surprise, really a knee jerk to all of us on Molokai, including myself, who I should have seen that this project was coming and I wasn't aware. And so that project will only benefit the landowner or the rooftop solar person, whoever is bringing that rooftop solar and project to themselves. It's directly tied to Maui Electric Company or Hawaiian Electric Company in this case. And so that type of ongoing business does not have any direct community benefits. But what it does do, it adds for my small community a saturation to the overall transmission of energy on Molokai. So back to the CBRE RFP, things like that in the actual RFP. Remember now, Hawaiian Electric is the producer of these RFPs, and they really should look, and the PUC should support, or we asking humbly that they support that roadblocks to having community ownership and to be the developers of these projects is really critical to empowering the equity in disadvantaged communities like West Oahu. And until we see that type of equity come to West Oahu, we're always going to be at the bargaining table trying to see what crumbs are going to come our way, what can we get out of this deal. It's not only labor intensive and really draining on low medium income types of communities. So it's time that the communities really have the support, remove the roadblocks out of community-based renewable energy, shared energy, the intention of what Act 100 was to be, and empower the communities to have ownership of their own energies. And that's just what I wanted to share in support of West Oahu. Mahalo.
Thank you. I saw there was a request from Joe Jordan. It looks like you're logged in here twice. Let's see. I just sent a request to unmute. Oh,
Now can you hear me?
yep. Yes, we can hear. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Yes, I am logged in twice because I didn't want to lose the call like I did when I was driving. I just got to clear my head. So first I want to thank the PUC for holding this meeting. I want to thank Hawaiian Electric for hosting the meeting with community leaders, not only over the last few months, but over the many years that they have engaged in conversation with our community. Thank you very much, Cynthia, for putting all your time and effort into your presentation this evening. I think you are very on point, and I'm not gonna expunge upon those. But many individuals in this meeting this evening, like Ms. Taruya, Ms. Timpson, Ms. Poi, have been engaged in these conversations for at least the last 20 years that I have been engaged in these conversations. And I appreciate your steadfastness. And aloha lori, I know you speak for our community as well as Mohokai. I look at the other side of this. I think some of the challenges are, as Cynthia has stated, when somebody gets the PPA, the community is kind of already out of consideration for discussion as we move forward in these processes. And I think those processes need to be altered, not only for this CBR, but for all projects moving forward. We need to have as much consultation with communities as we possibly can. Talking about these CBREs, we need to always stay focused on the consideration or for those individuals that are not going to be able to afford this moving forward. We need to think about individuals that might be retired on fixed income. We need to think about low income families that might be on public assistance, how they can participate in these programs. And that should be a discussion at our legislative level and our PUC level on how all are able to benefit from these projects, not just somebody that has the money that can purchase. I will also reiterate what Ms. Resentes has said, that these should be offered to the community first for X amount of time. That should be discussed. I'm not going to tell you it should be like months or days, but there should be an offer process to the immediate communities that's being affected. We have a problem in our state. Our government likes to implement these processes that, as we're seeing now, affects private utility companies. And then the PUC starts putting out demands and saying, well, you guys figure out the process. When we all know at the end of the day, we're limited on land. Those lands that we are limited with should be providing food instead of utilities. I like the thought of us using already what I'll call damaged lands. and you can speak to whatever that may be. That could have been an old landfill, that could have been something else that now is not viable for agriculture production or maybe low-income housing production. The state and the PUC, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, should start really focusing on state properties. And I'm not talking about public trust lands. I'm talking about where we have a school and using the parking lot, using the buildings to put these type of projects on there, even as CBRs, to help benefit one of the largest users of Hawaiian Electric's energy, which is our DOE system. Sorry, I just kind of wrote some notes so I wouldn't get lost on my thoughts, but I guess I am getting lost. Again, I'm just gonna kind of keep it short because I'm sure some other people want to speak this evening. And I will put some written comments in, but can you let us know how long do we have to submit an email and written comment to you folks? And that'll be all for my discussion right now.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. I guess I can speak. I mean, we're always open to taking comments. I think as far as our process from here, I'll talk about at the end. We are looking to take all this feedback, see what modifications we can make to the RFPs and go forward. We don't have an explicit timeline yet. So I guess my ask is the sooner you can, and this goes for everyone, the sooner we can get it in writing, the sooner we can work on what modifications we can make. So thank you for your time. I see in the chat here, Todd Taniguchi had a comment for everyone. I don't know if you want to speak to this further or, but I see I've read what you have in the chat here. Okay, if not, that's okay. Are there any other folks on the WebEx interested in speaking, commenting tonight? Oh.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there's Todd. It looks like Lauren, you've raised your hand. You want to go after? Okay. So is that Todd?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I think my comment is going to be more concise than my verbal, but really, if you look at trying to get some of this off of agricultural land and onto rooftops, I can tell you that between a CBRE operator and their costs, the savings obviously to the public at large and to the direct beneficiaries as CBRE off-takers. I think that the hosts of solar are currently having a hard time wanting to put land and rooftops that aren't currently covered with solar into that mix because of the difficulty in really just paying them for that 25-year commitment to solar. And I think in speaking to these landlords, they all want to do it, but there's dollars and cents of having a property that's just going to sit there, it can't be redeveloped. They've got leaks and other issues that they're going to have to come and contend with. And if you're giving them, less than 1% of the value that the solar is providing, then either the price of the solar needs to go up or, we're just going to write off those rooftops until that happens for them. So that's just my input. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Todd. We'll go to Lauren next and then Dick Mayer. I see we got you after that. Thank you. Go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I was going to have Lauren go next. She put her hand up first. Sorry.
Thank you, Lauren. Go, Lauren.
Okay, thank you. Aloha, Chair Griffin and commissioners. I'm Lauren Ballesteros Watanabe. I'm with the Sierra Club of Hawaii. So I'm not a community member, but 110% in support of the community here today and everything that has been shared. I would just like to offer comments in alignment with like the letters submitted regarding consent. I think there's been a lot of comments about the process being unfair and communities being in the dark or just not treated as partners in this very critical process of development in communities. So I would like to offer maybe thinking about how consent, free prior informed consent, there's like longstanding precedents of that being done, that maybe within the RFP, it could be placed somewhere like in the interconnection review process that is simultaneous to, running the numbers and all the data, that there's a community consent is being sought by that developer so when they get approval. And I think, that is not an easy undertaking, but it is critical, as is being shared, that communities have an opportunity to be a part of this and have a decision-making authority to assert their rights. And I think just by shared demonstration of the leadership from neighborhood board members here today with Mr. Sentes, Ms. Charlotte, Patty, that I think potentially there could be a kind of energy advisory committee created by MOCU, and it's an extension of neighborhood board. I just think that it's been mentioned prior, but knowing it is a big undertaking, I feel like it should and could be at the RFP level so that any developer comes, especially with industrial scale, because one thing I do want to just share how much I appreciate, or we appreciate, the prioritizing distributed energy resources, community scale energy, understanding we do need some industrial scale. It is critical that we make these investments and making communities like upfront partners, and it's put again in the RFP as we're talking about today. So that's just what I wanted to offer.
Great, thank you, Lauren. Dick Mayer, I see we've had another request, so we'll go to right after Dick Mayer. So thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm calling from Maui, and I have not been listening to any of the preceding discussion at all. I just turned on, somebody alerted me that you folks were meeting. I would like to make a request that a similar meeting to this one be held on Maui. The situation here, the whole energy situation on Maui and on the Big Island, each island has very unique features in the whole nature of things. The Big Island, for example, has backup geothermal. Maui has zero. We have no backup if fossil fuels plants are reduced. How long will it last if we have a 2-day storm of some kind, Kona weather, and we're relying on solar and wind for so much of our energy? We do not have backup. So we need much more consideration of increasing battery power, as an example, to these big, large scale solar farms that are going in, and wind farms. They're only requiring a 4-hour backup to these facilities. Yet we've often over the years had Kona weather that comes in with 2 days of storm, or 2 days of very heavy clouds. All I'm asking right now is that the PUC consider doing a similar meeting to this for the residents of each of the islands, because the situations on each island are so very unique. And that's all I'm asking. No input into the discussion that you've had previously. And thank you.
Okay, we did put a request out for any requests from other islands. We see Deborah Ward here. She requested for the Big Island, and we'll take this and contact you, set up a similar meeting for Maui.
I have, just so you know, I'm the coordinator for the alliance of all of the Maui community associations. So that's one of my functions.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Kapua Kali'ikoa Kamai. Let's see.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Okay, I have nowhere the knowledge or information or skills that Cynthia, Joe, and Shar and all the other folks have before me. But I do want to share that, one, I'm appreciative to you folks for having this meeting. Two, for Cynthia organizing our West Side leadership. But three, what we're trying to do, to me, is not just about for the west side. So what we accomplish here, I'm hoping is applied statewide as an improvement to everybody. But we are rising up because we have had so much over here without consent, and as has already been stated, without benefits. So, as was mentioned earlier, that it's not in the contract, so there's no way that we could have a benefit. So, as was stated earlier, again, so I'm more about reiterating what's important to us is about having a consultation with HECO and with their prospective developers to find out what the community feels is appropriate. It's not just about getting something for us, but it's getting something in return for what we're giving up. Obviously, we have a lot of lands out here, so it's almost a foregone conclusion that it's going to be here. But on the other side, we have to look at this is for everybody on Oahu, but everybody is not carrying this load equally. So how do we equalize the load-bearing kuleana for all of the communities? And so it cannot be accomplished in this one arena alone. It's a multitude of arenas to where we all have to carry that kuleana. If you go back to the Hawaiian ways, we had our ahupua'a, our moku system. We sustained ourselves, and when necessary, we also work with our neighbors. And that's where I feel that we are at in this day and time. We are educating our Waianae Valley homestead community in the community-based renewable energies process. Is it something that we could take on? Is it something that we'd like? But when you consider that there are many community members that are not well informed and not able to digest an 800-page RFP or even a 500-page RFP because we don't have that technical experience. But we do want to know the bottom line. That we can understand. And like Laurie had said, we need to remove the roadblocks that prevents the community from participating and engaging in necessary utilities like this. Because we do want to engage. We do want to be fair. We do want to carry our kuleana awamo. But let's all awamo our kuleana. And let's look at all of the ways that we do it. So where one community is carrying the energy load and another community is carrying the landfill load, what are the other communities carrying? How do we help them to carry their load, which may not be in energy? It may not be in landfills or in having the industrial out here. It may be in redirecting public funds to our schools, to our parks, adding security, electricity. That's something that HECO can do, and we can put it in the contract, but we need to make it so that it's digestible and understandable to grassroots street. I won't even call myself streetwise, but street attentive people like myself, who want to drive properly and make sure that we're all in our lanes and sharing that road together. So, I'm really saying that we need to have more equity along all the lines that the PUC has kuleana over and the Land Use Commission. All of these commissions need to come together and say, how do we make it equitable for everybody? Because some communities get to have their beautiful community while others our beauty is taken away. Our landscapes are taken away. Our traffic is increased. You know, so some of us are carrying the extra burdens, and people like me, maybe, I'm sure not only me, but we're asking for not only this commission, but for other commissions to consider how do we make it equitable for everybody on Oahu, for everybody to live here without losing more of our own people. And I really support, and I thank you folks, and I support all of the previous speakers. I do think HECO has more say and control when they put it out there. So, you know, with the RFP, especially regarding the CBREs, is to make it to where a community can actually be a viable contender. And if that means that HECO cannot provide that service, then that's what we need to do. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you. Let's see. Anyone else? Oh, we got applause. Looking for anyone else on the WebEx wishing to speak this evening? Let's see. Okay. The risk of we will try and I see a couple of people on phone. So we will request whether you want to speak or not. And oh, I see. Well, we've got two people on the phone. You're unmuted. So if either of you wish to speak, please identify yourself. If you could please state your name. We just see a user number. If you don't wish to, that's fine. Okay, not hearing anyone. We'll make one last call here. Anyone wishing to speak, wave your hand or identify in the chat. Okay, not seeing anyone. Okay, so I think with that, we're going to conclude our meeting tonight. I want to thank all of you for your time here. A lot of time has gone into, I can see, preparing for this. So again, thank you for that. As I said, we will take the feedback. Mike, if you could put into the chat again quickly, and I'll reiterate it. We take any written comments at puc.comments@hawaii.gov. So please enter anything more, and we'll take that feedback, and we will look at how we modify the RFPs given the feedback here. Obviously, there's concrete ideas we can work with, particularly in looking at how some of the valuation criteria are developed as part of this, and we'll look at how we take the recommendations and modify the RFPs. And I think, as Shelley talked about, the intent is to continue to move forward with the process, but we're going to take the feedback here. We've scheduled a meeting for Hawaii Island, and Dick Mayer, we hear you. I think you have Mike Wallerstein's email. I'll work on a meeting for Maui Island too as well. So thank you all for your time. Have a good evening, and go be with your families. Thank you.